Hi beautiful creatures, and welcome to week 1 of the Big Magic Book Club. Yay! Okay, so this week's theme, or the chapter for this week, was courage. And I've had so many people on Instagram link me to their amazing blog posts. Storytelling and Tea and Tarot posted her video recently, which was really awesome, and I really enjoyed that. So I've been really loving everybody's responses and engagement with the Big Magic Book Club. So I do have a couple of notes, and I wanted to, oh, there goes my octopus. And I wanted to sort of touch on a couple of topics that I thought were really interesting that were brought up in this chapter, Courage, of Big Magic Book Club. So basically, this chapter was talking a lot about courage and fear, and how fear can get in the way of creative exploration or living a creative life. And Elizabeth Gilbert kind of goes into that a little bit with a few of her own stories, and also some stories that are from like her friend and stuff like that, which I found quite interesting. One of the biggest things that hit me in this chapter was that sort of realization when she decided that her fear was boring, and when she realized that fear is a deeply instinctual part of being a human, and that this is an experience that actually everybody goes through. So it's not interesting, it's not new, it's not different, it's actually boring. And that was really interesting to me because I've never sort of looked at fear as being boring. I don't tend to look at lots of things as being boring, maybe disinteresting. I don't really like the word boring. It implies like you're not using a part of your brain, but anyway. So I thought that was really interesting, and I sort of really liked that fear, because it's such a repetitive experience, and because we all experience it, it can be boring, and it doesn't actually, and it takes the power away from fear. So I asked the question on my Instagram earlier in the week, like, how do creativity and fear coexist? So, and I got some really interesting responses to that too. And I do actually align myself with a lot of those responses. Mostly people were saying that whenever you're about to have a big breakthrough as a creative person or living a creative life, whatever that means to you, if it's just doing things that you really enjoy and that you're passionate about, you know, the big breakthrough is going to come when you're most afraid. So when you're most afraid of taking the next step, or of moving forward, or of failing, or of succeeding, that's when the biggest breakthroughs tend to happen. And I totally agree with that as an artist. It's a lot about not so much failure, but it's a lot about moving forward when things are at their worst, when things are the toughest, and not giving up. And that can be a scary experience sometimes, because you don't know if you're going to succeed. But I don't think that there is such a thing as failure linked to creativity and linked to fear. But we're so afraid of it, you know. She has a whole list in the book about, you know, the most common things that we're afraid of, and it's true, everybody experiences it, so you're not alone in your fear. So you should never let it take a hold of you, even though that's a very difficult thing. So I wanted to pose a few questions to you guys, and I wanted to share with you a tarot spread that I did in regards to this. So my questions are basically, consider the ways that you let your fear exist, and then when you've considered that, I want you to acknowledge it and just let it go, because that is the best way that you can learn to coexist with your fear. And this is what I've been getting a lot of responses on, is that sometimes we actually have a constant fear and we don't acknowledge it, and we just let it get worse and worse until it, you know, goes into stuff like anxiety. It can get into stuff like depression. I'm not saying that those are mental illnesses as well, and they need to be dealt with like that too, but on a mild level we can experience anxiety and depression and all that kind of stuff if we don't acknowledge that we have fears about certain things. Because sorry about the loud birds, I can't really do anything about nature. When we let fear take the front seat, you know, Elizabeth Gilbert used that analogy of going on a road trip, then it overcomes us. It's very easy to feel overcome by those powerful emotions like anger and fear. Those are the big ones, and I think that, you know, we just need to consider and acknowledge and let go of our fears to a degree. Because yes, fear is useful for us, as I was talking about and as other people have mentioned. it does let us know when we're on the right track. So just on a personal level, I kind of wanted to share a bit of an experience with you guys. So, you know, a lot of the time when I'm doing my creative work, because I am an artist, as a professional artist, that's my job, I make art, and that's really hard. So when I experience anxiety, stress, I'm overstimulated and overburdening myself with things, I often get afraid that I'm going to fail. I get really scared that I'm not going to do as well as I could, and then you know, 2 weeks down the track after that essay is handed in, I've got my results back, and I found out that I've excelled. So this is one of the ways that fear for me kind of works as well. It's like, I could be afraid of failing because I've put pressure on myself, but, you know, the real fear is, yeah, it's one of failure, but it's actually because I'm experiencing that kind of side effect of fear when you let it take a hold of your life. So I found that really interesting. And I could kind of associate with that through the book. Now, I do have to say that, like, the book is not as gripping for me as I thought it would be, but this is just the first chapter, so I'm giving it a chance. It's not as like hard-hitting for me as Light is the New Black, which I'm currently still reading because I'm just working my way through that book. But I kind of expected that a little bit. But I'm excited to go through it and see what else is going to happen. Oh, the other thing. I really am interested in putting this out there because as I got to thinking more and more about fear and courage and what those kind of things mean, I wanted to sort of discuss a little bit about the role of horror movies. I was just having a chat with a art colleague of mine. We were minding a gallery space together, and we were talking about different horror movies and how, like, every now and again we really like to watch them, but we can only watch them, you know, 6 months apart or something, like 2 horror movies a year, because we have active imaginations and those kind of things really get to us. And so I started thinking about fear and how that actually is a need that we need to satisfy. Like, we have this instinctual drive to experience fear, but because of our current situations, like our modern life, we don't actually have a chance to experience real physical danger. And horror movies, I think, give us a chance to experience that fear and that adrenaline rush that comes from fear in a pretty relatively safe environment of a movie theater, or if you're at home, you know, that kind of stuff. So I just wanted to think, I guess throw it out there, if you guys think that horror movies maybe have a little part to play in fear. And those are especially creative, I think. And also I think it's a safe outlet, like if you feel like you need to be scared. Which is a strange thing, but it is a drive that we have every now and again. Like, I love monsters. I love Alien and H.R. Geiger and stuff like that. So if I watch a horror movie, it's usually sci-fi edged, or it has a really cool monster in it. I'm not big on demons and ghosty stuff, just like, yeah, I think that's because it's like that stuff really freaks me out, like the suggested monster. Like, I like the physical monster because I love, you know, from an artist perspective, I love props and stuff. Anyway, I'm rambling a bit off track, but yeah, I just wanted to put it out there what you guys think of horror movies and if they have a part to play in fear, but experiencing it from, you know, a safe point of view. So that kind of chapter of courage really got me into that. And then I did a tarot spread, and I will show you this. Hopefully it comes up from my phone. So the question that I asked my deck was, how can I allow my fear and creativity to coexist? And to know how to let them coexist together, you have to know what your fears are and what your sort of creative abilities are. So I've done this spread, and hopefully you guys can see it. It's just a 3-card spread. Just there. So it's basically a pyramid shape, and the first card you put down is your fears, or represents your fears. The second card you put down is what your creative qualities are, or what your creativity is. And the third card, which lies on the top of the pyramid, is how can they coexist, and, you know, what do you need to do to create the balance. Because that's another theme that sort of popped up with this courage, is courage and fear need to need to live in balance and harmony with creativity. And in our hectic modern day lives, it's becoming really hard to balance everything. Storytelling Tea and Tarot was talking about how she was just trying to manage all these tasks, and she got sick and she got all this sort of stuff in the 1 week where she wanted to really write, and she just freaked out about it. And that's exactly what this is all about. It's like, ultimately it's about balance and finding a sort of harmony, inner harmony within you that, you know, allows fear, creativity, and gives you, I guess, the courage to let them coexist together. Because that's, yeah, it's not an easy thing to do. And I recently had some nightmares and stuff, and I am really terrible when it comes to nightmares because I get sleep paralysis and stuff as well, particularly if I'm stressed. And yeah, that can be a pretty scary experience, and I usually freak out and I start reading, and I don't go to bed until like ridiculously like 6 a.m. in the morning because I'm too freaked out from my dreams. But I actually, through this book, I thought, no, like, think about your fear as, first of all, it's in your head. Second of all, when you get up, you're gonna like sage the fuck out of the room anyway, so that'll be fine. And third of all, like, think about your dream, actually. Like, maybe it's trying to tell you something. And when I thought about my dream, I had realized that one of the sort of demons or characters that I saw was actually very close to something that I've drawn physically. So my subconscious was like playing on stuff that I've created from my imagination. And as soon as I realized that, you know, basically I was imagining this feeling of being afraid, that there was actually nothing out there to harm me, I was fine. But that's where inner courage, you know, comes in. So those are sort of my thoughts on courage and fear and creativity and how they can coexist. I can't really tell you how to coexist those things in your own life, but I can say that the first chapter of this book has really made me consider fear and creativity and the role that they play with each other in a different way. And yeah, I think it's quite interesting. So it hasn't hit me as hard as I thought it might hit me, but the book is very easy to read, and I'm glad that we're taking the time to read it together because, you know, with myself, I would just totally skim through and I wouldn't think about any of these things in any depth. But with this, I actually felt, you know, inspired to create a tarot spread and go through and do that. So I think this book can help you in any kind of creative work that you're doing, which I think has been echoed with other people's opinions too. So the next chapter that we're going to be reading is Enchantment. So that will be for this week's reading, and I'm just going to see how long that page is. The chapter is. And I'll see whether or not we might do 2 chapters, but this one actually seems a bit longer. So we are just going to do the 1 chapter, Enchantment, for this coming week, week 2 of Big Magic Book Club. As usual, I will probably post a question midweek to help you spark what I think the chapter might be about and help create a little bit more discussion. Also, I did want to say, if you guys have opinions and you want to share your opinions midweek or post a video or do a blog post or anything like that, please feel free to do it because I know it's hard to wait until the end of the week, particularly when we have pressing things or we don't really find the time and stuff like that. So yeah, feel free to make your videos midweek if you need to. Feel free to make them as soon as you finish the chapter, basically. But just be aware that we're doing this a week at a time. I'm going to continue that sort of time slot, and so if you do it too early, maybe you might, I don't know, miss out on something else, or you'll feel like you need to add something into the discussion after other people have said it, which isn't a problem, but yeah, just, I guess, be aware of that. But, so, it's going to be week 2 is going to be Enchantment, which I love that word. I really love that word. So I'm looking forward to that. There will probably be another tarot or oracle spread. You can use that spread. Yeah, I just kind of made it up and I really like the results of it. And so I thought I'd share it with you guys. Yeah, if you're into tarot and oracle, please feel free to do that. If you're into writing, please write something. If you're into, I don't know, anything, Lenormand, if you're into runes, if you're into crystals, if you have a particular crystal that corresponded with this for you. For me, courage is tiger eye, like that is courage for me. So I might do a crystal of the chapter and a tarot spread of the chapter depending on how I feel, and share in my discussions and opinions. So yeah, I guess my little unique spin on courage and fear was the horror movie thing. So yes, I'm bringing it up again because I really want to know what you guys think about it, and if you use horror movies to scare you in a safe way. Yeah, put your comments down below and let me know if you are joining us for the first week of this challenge, or if you've just found this video randomly and you want to join us, then please feel free. Also, if you're watching this, you know, 1,000 years into the future, okay, maybe not 1,000, but you know, a couple of months in the future, then feel free to pick up this book and start reading whenever you want. I'll see you all in the next video. Thanks for watching and joining in Big Magic Book Club. Bye!